Good afternoon, educators. I am talking to moms, teachers, grandparents, teaching assistants, anybody who works with small children and is a caregiver. Good afternoon, educators. I am going to admit to you, I'm not going to rock your world today with a fantastic idea, but I just have two things that have kind of been on my mind that I want to talk to you about and just kind of put a bug in your ear and just give you some things to think about. So, the other day I went to a Pampered Chef party at a friend of mine's house, and it's not really in my budget right now to go shopping for Pampered Chef things. I actually have a lot of Pampered Chef things already, but I did want to taste the linguine she was making. So, we ended up doing a kind of barter thing. So I went to the party, but in exchange for dinner, I told her that I would watch the couple of kids that were going to be there. Actually ended up being more like 5, so it was a lot of fun. But I said I would bring a craft. And what I did was bring more of a puzzle or a following directions activity. Let me show you what I mean. This was my example bunny bottoms. So you might have heard me kind of catch my breath when I said example, because as a person who has taught some art, I really don't like to have an example. However, there's nothing wrong with having an example, but personally, I wouldn't call this art or a craft. I would call it, like I said, a following directions activity that's fun and cute. Or maybe it was a fine motor activity if the children cut these things out and glued. Or even a puzzle, because I gave them the pieces and then they put it together to make this bunny bottom. So it has value. But if they all end up looking pretty much the same, which this was my daughter's, this was the example. So if they all kind of end up looking the same, just personally, I wouldn't call it art. I would call it following directions activity or fine motor activity or a puzzle. So if you call it art and you're with my daughter and you make that and call it art, am I going to look down my nose at you? No, I am not. No, I am not. I'm just giving you something to think about as educators out there. So that probably doesn't help you go do something today as a result, which is what I usually try to do. But again, today I'm just giving you a couple things to think about. So that's the first thing. The second thing is I've been hearing a whole lot about process art. Okay. So in education, we talk a lot about product versus process. Actually, we usually say process versus product, but it doesn't matter. So process art I've been seeing a lot on social media and stuff in the education world. And I just want to tell you what that means in case you're running across it and don't really know what that is. So process versus product. For example, I don't have an example because the example for process might be what you see when you do finger painting. So do you have a lot of finger painting products? You may or you may not, but normally they turn brown, right? Because they put all the colors together and it's so much fun and they get their fingers dirty and they learn about how paint works and how colors mix and how it feels, and just that art is fun. So there's a lot of value in it, but you might not have a product. Or if you do, it might just be, it look like mud. So maybe your product is a picture of mud. Or, and that, don't get me wrong, that is valuable too. Maybe you keep all of those. It's whatever your kids make is amazing, right? So, it's just more like that. That would be that would be called process art, because again, this is all opinion, but a lot of people would hold more value in the process than, say, the brown result product. My daughter and I went to a class this morning at a library nearby, and they were again talking about process art. And so they read The Very Hungry Caterpillar and gave the kids lots of different pieces of paper, just like to illustrate the way Eric Carle did in that book and does in most of his books. And they called it process art because they didn't want us to influence the kids in any way. Wonderful. But see, I would not call this process art personally, and maybe I have the definition wrong because I'm not out there right now. I'm not an art teacher at the moment. But to me, this is an amazing product. Now, of course, I'm biased. It's my daughter's art. But I think it's beautiful. And so, art is in the eye of the beholder. So, this was called process art. And I guess they just want you to, as a definition called process art, to step back and just let kids learn about how things work and how you can, like, for instance, the papers that when you put too much glue, they come through, and that you can glue foil, and that you can stack things on top of each other, and just kind of how art works and how paper works and how glue works. There's a lot of value in that. Even if this ended up all ripped up and if it wasn't something that you were going to keep, they were saying that the process holds value because they're learning about how things work with art materials. So I would call that, I guess, process art with an amazing product. Anyway, again, this is not earth-shattering stuff. It's all kind of, what's the word? I can't come up with it. Abstract, I guess. It's all opinion. So tell me what you think below. Tell me what you think about if this is art, a craft, or maybe you just think it. Maybe you're like me and you think it's a puzzle or fine motor skills or following directions activity. And again, I don't care if you call it art. It's fine. Tell me what you think about process art. And if you knew about that already, or if you have a different idea, let's talk about it, because I think it's really interesting to have all the different opinions on how this works. So, let's see what you have to say. I'd love to hear about it below. Thanks. Bye, educators.